Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on Geek Ultimate Alliance Podcast Network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, like always, Katie. And joining me from a galaxy far, far away in Indiana is Clay. Clay, how are you doing today?
Today was pretty good. I ended my day. Well, yeah, I should have ended my day around like 2:45 ish, but there was some stragglers on my route, and so I, ended my day closer to around 3:30. So today was a good day. It's the first time in 2 or 3 weeks that I got to go home when the sun was still out. So that was fun. Um, the not so fun part, I let everybody know in the GUH chat. Not gonna spill, family stuff out there, but it's all I will say. It is rough finding a daycare at the end of the year. Absolutely insane. I don't recommend it. If you're looking for a daycare, look months in advance for when you actually need a daycare. Don't try to do it last minute like me because I'm an idiot. Anyway.
Yeah, we've started looking. Not that we're like set on a daycare yet, but just to kind of like
You
give
need to know
us
what's
the
out there.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also need to know what's out there. As somebody who used to be uh, a part of a family daycare, my grandmother owned a daycare for 40 something years, worked there for nearly 11 or 12 years. Like, I knew the way I was doing things, the way me and Abby were doing things were totally the wrong way. But just because, we just recently moved here and things are kind of stacked against us, I was like, this is kind of what we got to do when it's not so great. But we are
Yeah.
looking at the bright side of things. I think we uh, should be in a more positive situation in like 3 weeks or so. So, looking forward to that. But enough
Crossing
about
my fingers
us.
for you guys.
Yeah, definitely crossing our fingers. But enough about me because we got a lot to talk about today. Plus, I can finally talk about Lords of the Sith after reading it like 10 times in the last month. I have listened to this. I think I have this book memorized. I was listening to Eye of Darkness again last
Yeah.
week, but today I was like, you know what? Let me put on Lords of the Sith just so that way I can revamp some of my thoughts and some of my key points that I want to talk about today. And I was literally talking with the narrator, repeating and saying things before he was saying them. I have this book locked down more so than any book that I've ever listened to on Audible. And this is
See,
insane that it's the first book that's canon. I didn't know that. So that's
is it the
really
first
cool.
was it the first book?
That's what you said in your post, wasn't it?
One of the first canon
Is it
books.
one of the first? Okay. Either way, it's a good book. I don't know what other people's opinions are on it. I didn't look at any reviews. I didn't look at Goodreads. I did mark it down on my Goodreads, you know, end of the year type of thing, reading book challenge. But I really like it. Can't wait to talk about it. And I have some questions for you. There's a
Okay.
few points in there that made me scratch my head a little bit, and I want to know if you could possibly fill me in on some things.
Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the Star Wars publishing timeline because I think this was like the third book
Oh, okay.
that Del Rey published.
Either
You want to
way,
get started on our first set of news?
yes. So the first set of news, the first one that you sent me here, it's comic book news. I know that not a lot of people read the Star Wars comics and everything else, but this is kind of important just because this title took readers by storm. It's a very loved title, very loved writer because of the title. But says here that now that solicits have gone out, I can confirm our current run. And of course, this is Alyssa Wong. Uh, our current run of Dr. Aphra wraps with issue 40. Just like the previous volume, but without spoiling the ending, keep an eye toward the future and don't miss Revelations 2023. Now, I know I know a lot of people are upset at this. I am really surprised that Dr. Aphra isn't one of those titles that they're attempting to keep going. Uh Now it says that it's our current run of Dr. Aphra. This could mean that Dr. Aphra does continue forward. But I know with beloved characters like this, it doesn't feel the same without that first initial writer. Um, Things such as, for me, I can relate to this in the sense of uh, Scott Snyder on Batman, or Dan Slott on Spider Man, and things like that. So I totally understand why people are going to be upset about this. But you made a really funny point. Now that we've converted you into being a comic book collector, an omnibus collector, should I say? You made
I'm
a
not really
very
huge into omnibuses. Let's get that straight because they're just so massive. Like it's very hard to like actually sit down and go, "Yes, I'm going to read from this omnibus." So,
it is.
just
Uh, but you made a good point. Um, Omnibuses usually have a a large number of issues, whether that be for it being a 2 volume set, 3 volume set, whatever. But you made the point that there's already a volume 1 omnibus for this, issues 1 through what again?
25.
Okay, I was gonna say 25, but I didn't want to mess it up. So 1 through 25, and now issue 40 ends the series with Alyssa Wong. So that second volume is only going to be 15 issues.
I wouldn't imagine that they're going to put out well, they might, like honestly, but I was thinking they're probably just going to put together a full omnibus. Um and like everybody has been wondering when is the current run of the mainline Star Wars comics going to end? Because the comparison between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, the years between those two movies is 3 years.
Hmm.
Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi is only a year.
Yes.
And at this point, the Star Wars run released their 41st issue today. And the original run for between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back,
Was
um
50 issues.
no, it was 75.
Was it 75? Okay, I
Yeah,
couldn't remember.
I think it was
So
75.
the
It's got
I
13 trades. That's all I know.
it's got 13 trades. Holy cow. Okay. So, oh, that's right. You did purchase those from my old comic shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a huge run. And we've talked about this before. We talked about how, like, okay, you know, you can only stretch a story so far, especially when you have a limited time frame. You literally have this is where it starts and this is where it ends. We've talked about the possibility of moving the goalpost a little bit, in the sense of, okay, we can skirt past, you know, uh, the Return of the Jedi and start there and start to introduce some more things to get us kind of brought up to where Force Awakens is conceptually. Um, and then we've also talked about, okay, well, what if you go backwards a little bit and jump into the High Republic era? And we already have a High Republic title, but it could just be the main Star Wars title, you know? I
Yeah.
don't see why that couldn't be a thing. Uh, but what do you see as like? Because again, I always have to reiterate this. I am not so like neck deep into the Star Wars Twitter as you are. Is there a lot of people complaining and like just because I know me and you, we're always like, okay, what's the next lineup of books? Like, what are we gonna get to? Like,
Yeah.
Michael Slang, like, are you gonna give us anything? Like, what's going on? And is there any of that discourse on Twitter or like what do you think personally should be the answer for when they finally stop the Skywalker saga, the original trilogy run of story?
I think what they're gonna end up doing is they're gonna go backwards and they're going to tackle Obi-Wan and Anakin, um, as, like, the main line and they're gonna start filling in the movie gaps,
I like that idea.
because I don't see Lucasfilm, the film company, going, "Yeah, sure, you can tackle Luke Skywalker's next part of his story." I don't see that happening.
But they let Adam Christopher do it.
But they set up Adam Christopher's story where it is a good distance off in the future, though. So, yes, they let him do that, but they
True.
more of set it up as a prequel to The Force Awakens and still gave enough time on either side for it to be like, "Yeah, you can do
So in
what you
that
want."
case, do you think that like placing Luke Skywalker's next adventure is gonna be all Filoni with the uh with his
I
movie?
think Yeah, I think at least until we get the Heir to the Empire movie, and we keep calling it the Heir to the Empire movie, y'all, but that's just the only reference, like, we currently have, um,
Mhm.
Filoni's movie. I think until we get that, we are not gonna see any more because right now, Filoni has a clear box to play it completely. So, I just don't think as much as I've enjoyed because I'm not, like, totally up to date on the Star Wars run, but I'm decently into it. Um, and so, like, as much as I've loved, like, the story that Soul is telling right now, I just don't think it's gonna continue. Like, I think Filoni is gonna get free reign to play in that 4-year time frame, 5-year, or just 11 ABY, depending on whatever the hell he wants to do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just don't think it's gonna happen. So I think we're gonna aim towards the prequel era, but with Wong saying our current run of Dr. Aphra, they maybe get it that may be their hint, like, "Hey, don't worry, we still got more of Dr. Aphra." Like like you kind of insinuated.
I I wonder if because I mean, we're gonna be talking about Darth Vader and Lords of the Sith. Darth Vader is a very popular comic.
Mhm.
And famously, as of right now, Darth Vader has a total of 4 different runs with different writers on it. Um,
Yeah.
who's to say that that Alyssa Wong can just be the first person on Dr. Aphra, creating such a character or I don't even was Alyssa Wong the creator of Dr. Aphra, or did she just pick up the
No.
mantle?
So I think it was Kieran Gillen,
Okay,
um,
okay.
who introduced her in
In the Darth Vader
his
run.
run. Yeah, in his run of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Um,
So I could definitely see like, okay, the fans really picked up this character. They really want to know more about her. Alyssa Wong, hey, we think you're the best person to kind of start this run of this character. Let's see how it goes. It's going to be running for 40 issues. I don't think any character is above getting like it's kind of like how we treat Superman and Batman, right?
Yeah.
Or any other character that any other fictional character. Spider-Man is larger than Tom Holland, larger than Tobey Maguire, bigger than Andrew Garfield. Same thing with Henry Cavill and Superman. Same thing with Ben Affleck and Batman, Keaton and Batman. Those characters, those fictional characters, are always going to be larger than the people who portray them or the writers that write them. So Alyssa Wong did do great things for Dr. Aphra,
Yeah.
but we need to understand that Dr. Aphra has entered this legacy that is Star Wars, which is much bigger than Alyssa Wong will ever be. Uh,
And I think a lot of people get that, but I think Alyssa in particular has embraced Dr. Aphra's queerness,
mm,
to an extent that has latched on with a lot of people and been able to tell really good love stories while also keeping Aphra like this aloof, person and like manipulative, I guess I would say, but based on what I read. Um and, like, with Alyssa's stuff that's come into the High Republic, I hope that they're gonna get a lot of stuff in the High Republic, and maybe future Doctor Aphra stuff is gonna be delayed, because I've just really enjoyed their writing, and I've started getting into their Deadpool run. And, like, I'm having a blast with that. So, I think Alyssa's just super talented, and I think most of Star Wars Twitter, I think, was more shocked than anything that Dr. Aphra didn't get the fanfare ending that Bounty Hunters kinda did, if that makes sense.
okay, I can understand that. Um, but also, it probably didn't get the fanfare because it's not the end of Dr. Aphra. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As
whereas
far
I
as
think
like, well, go ahead, go ahead.
I think the way at least Ethan, the writer for Bounty Hunters, is kind of insinuating that, like, we're gonna see some characters die, whereas I don't think they're ever gonna kill off Dr. Aphra. Dr. Aphra's just been too popular of a character.
Yeah, and I think that because I'm reading some of the comments on this post, uh, and you're right, people are devastated about this, and I think that the best thing you can do, and this is something that definitely happens within the comic book industry, is Alyssa Wong needs to be open to critique the next writer. Be open to giving that writer notes. Be open to
Yeah,
pushing that story forward from what they had. Now, I will say this: something that is also very famous in the comic book industry is for the next writer to completely throw out any large continuity things with those characters. Now, the only difference is Star Wars is not like regular comics. You
yeah,
can't throw out continuity. You can't
yeah,
rewrite things in Star Wars. So what's set in stone in Star Wars is set in stone. So Alyssa Wong kind of has the freedom to do what she did and be like, well, I did it. You can't do anything now. It's Star Wars. So I would love for her to get in contact with the next writer, do some collabs, uh, and help push that next writer into what hopefully people will really latch on to for this next new story for Dr. Aphra. And this is
yeah,
only
and
me assuming that Dr. Aphra is continuing after this.
yeah, and I'd say I don't think that's ever gonna be a problem. A lot of at least the main Star Wars comic writers, I don't know about the trades, like the, mini runs, um, whatever. A lot of the mainline Star Wars comics, like, they're all the time like, "Oh, yeah, Alyssa in particular is like, "Oh, yeah, I sent Daniel this," or "Daniel sent me this, and it just made my day 10 times worse or better," or like all in between. And I know the High Republic authors are sharing notes on people's stuff all the time. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
imagine that's going to be a problem, especially if Dr. Aphra does return as a mainline Star Wars comic. But yeah, very
Yeah.
excited to see what'll happen because obviously we've got a lot of good Star Wars comics coming early next year, um, and into the great beyond. Because right now, well, currently we have, I say currently, there's no Star Wars celebration planned for 2024. So the next big like Comic-Con event is going to be San Diego Comic-Con in July.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think there's any big Comic-Cons, like New York Comic-Con is October and
Hmm.
stuff. So,
I think the earliest you can probably get something is probably in the spring. There might be a big enough convention to kind of like have like a couple tidbits kind of thrown our way.
yeah.
Nothing too large. But I don't expect anything juicy and newsworthy until San Diego Comic-Con.
Well, and like Tom mentioned on that Reddit post, like they've stopped depending on conventions to be a big news source for them because of social media. So, Alyssa Wong's getting the social media like announcement kind of thing. I do wish again that they had gotten a little more fanfare because I think Bounty Hunters is ending in February and Afra is ending in January. So it's like, could you not have done both at the same time? um,
True. Yeah.
so yeah. Either way, again, happy to see what comes out of it. Alyssa Wong, obviously, Afra is continuing uh until issue number 40 comes out. I do believe they have a story in Revelations, I think
Yeah.
is what it is. Which is out, I think next week, I want to say. Or is it I think it's either next week or the following week. I don't think
I'll
it's
look
the end
into it.
of the year.
I think it is next week.
Yeah. So we'll see what comes next because I do know Afro was on the cover for Revelations. So
Very cool.
so the next bit of news we have is actually Natalie Portman has been doing some interviews for her new movie, May December, right? Yes, May December. Um, and she talked about, and I just wanted to kind of throw these out. May not have too much to discuss on this, but she talked about how The Phantom Menace was the first time she had ever worked with something digitally, and like doing green screen production and everything. And now, granted, again, when The Phantom Menace was released, Natalie Portman was 18 years old. So,
Holy crap. That I mean, I say holy crap, but when the Phantom Menace was released, I think I was like 12. So it holy crap, I'm not that much younger than you. How wait, what? How old were
I was
you?
3
Oh my god.
because it came out in May, and I was born October 95.
Oh wait, it came out. Ooh, hold on. It came out in 95?
No, it came. The Phantom Menace came out in 1999 in May.
99. Okay. So I was holy crap. I was only 8 years old. I thought I was a lot older. Okay. I mean, knowing that I'm only 10 years younger than Natalie Portman is still kind of terrifying. Um, did did not know that she was that young or that I was that old. I mean, either way.
Yeah,
Um,
Keira Knightley, I think, was 16.
oh yeah, because she was in the movie too. I keep
Yeah.
forgetting that. So my thing is, she also in this article makes a statement saying, "I'm open to it" when asked about playing Padme again in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
So, my question to you is we've had Hayden come back. He's done brand new scenes as a part of main continuity, like in real time. Like technically we're still in like the
Right.
Skywalker saga,
Yeah.
original trilogy, but new stuff. And he even did flashbacks with Clone Wars stuff, and he wore the Clone Wars armor and everything else. Do you think that they would be willing to bring back Natalie?
I
Lucasfilm,
don't
not
yeah.
us the fans. Of course, we're always going to say yes, bring them back, bring them back. But do you think Lucasfilm is going to be like, okay, let's make a story here so we can get her back?
Maybe. I just don't see what the purpose would be. Like, it would have to like, I wouldn't just want, like, Ahsoka sleeping one day and dreams of Padme, like, a lesson that Padme told her. Like, I think like, maybe for the voice, but I wouldn't wanna actually see Portman in that case. I think the way they brought back Hayden in Ahsoka, um, was very classy and didn't feel like just a cameo spot.
Yeah, it,
Um,
it didn't feel like fan service, but it definitely was fan
yeah.
service for sure. Yeah.
Y I You and I disagree on that because, like, it didn't feel like fan service doesn't mean that it was like, to me, it doesn't mean it was fan service. Like,
Well,
so
no, 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 I agree with you. I agree with you. But the
everybody
one
else in the
thing that
world.
well, no, no, one thing that
Snell.
I will I agree. Brent says this all the time at Marvel Alliance. We are fans. We like to be serviced. It's okay to like fan service. So the Hayden Christensen stuff, like I am not saying that I dislike that whatsoever, but the studio was like, "Hey, this would be great fan service. Let's do it." And I'm like, "Yes, do more of that, please." So I don't have a problem with it. But do you think they do it more so in, let's say, the rumors, I think this is more so the start of like the I hear my child screaming. Sorry guys. But once we saw Hayden in Obi-Wan Kenobi, everybody's like, we need a Darth Vader series. We need a Darth Vader series. We need a Darth Vader series. And also going to be talking about this in Lords of the Sith. But there's some moments where Darth Vader thinks about Padme. Would you be okay with in the same light of Obi-Wan Kenobi, in that series, he saw Anakin in the distance in his Jedi robes. And it was like just like him like hallucinating. Would you want Padme, Natalie Portman to be in those types of scenes if it was only those types of scenes? Or do you need more from her?
I'd be okay with that. You could also probably in that, like, in a vein of a Darth Vader series, throw her into, like, some nightmares that Vader has
Mhm.
meditating. I just I really don't want a Darth Vader series. I think the comics have done it
What?
justice. We talked about this already. Okay, this is not new information. Like, I just don't see a whole lot of point to it. I like whatever they're building towards because obviously we saw a Force Ghost for Anakin in Ahsoka. So I think you can use him more in that vein in a season 2 in the Heir to the Empire movie and just kind of be like, here's Anakin versus
But it's Darth Vader.
I okay, I hated the idea like the Darth Vader scenes in Rogue One. That totally defeated the point of Rogue One to me, was to throw Darth Vader in the mix. And the only reason Darth
But
Vader
it's
was
the
there
lightsaber
was to
problem.
pull people in. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yes. It's the thing. And Travis Mitchell in the chat saying, "Hope you guys are doing well. This was such a great book when I was younger." We are going to get to the book review. Right now, we're just kind of touching up on news, and this book actually kind of thrown us into this part of news segment here. But I will say this, like with the with the idea of a Vader series, though, everything like everything that a lot of people have a problem with the other Disney series, which we don't have a problem with. You just shut him up just for one season. Just like, hey, we're gonna get the fan favorite character, and if you put Lords of the Sith into a series, that in a weird way could actually tie into like a prequel to Andor in a way. Like it honestly could. Like it technically I think the timeline is a little bit further out, but like I think it could work. Like I genuinely think something like Lords of the Sith or even just like any run of the Darth Vader series,
Yeah.
like just recently. I'm not going to spoil too much, but and I don't know how recent this is just because it's one of the last issues that I read in Darth Vader, but Darth Vader like is basically having in a quote unquote apprentice or like partnership in one of Padme's like guards.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Sabe.
and then you could have Natalie Portman in there like and have all that. Like I think it would work out perfectly. Andrew is also in the chat saying I can't watch live tonight, but I wanted to pop in and say, hey, hello, Andrew. Thank you so much
Hi,
for
Andrew.
always popping by. Travis also says, I agree. I think of Vader's life has been pretty well covered across all eras. Like, are you saying that you don't need a Darth Vader series
I
that
don't
he's
need a
already?
Darth Vader series. I want to see Anakin. Anakin is a more interesting character.
I'm not gonna say that he's not, but Anakin has no arms and no legs anymore. Like he's all burnt
No,
up.
I'm not
Like
saying like Anakin an Anakin series. I want to see Anakin as a Force ghost participating in Ahsoka or giving us more backstory on like Mortis, for instance, like if he took over the father role, like
I
you
mean,
talked about.
I mean,
Mm.
for anybody listening, go listen to our
Mhm.
last episode. I'm totally down for that. That's exactly what I want. Travis is actually talking to us here in the chat saying what I would like is maybe the last hurrah of Anakin Skywalker before he dies in episode 6. It's clear he's not Vader anymore and wants out. Seeing him take one last ride in a pod racer or something. Like so I really like the idea. And again, we'll talk about this more in the review. But in this book, Lords of the Sith, Darth Vader talks about how his past helps him channel his rage and helps him become the Sith Lord that Palpatine needs him to be. And in a weird way, there's like this weakness in it, but there's also this strength in it. And it has this really weird relationship within his own mind that I would really love to see be explored, especially in live action. Like I love reading about it. I've read this book, like I said, 10 times over the course of me working. But like I'm all for Anakin or Vader, but I do think that just like that of a Wolverine or a Batman or a Venom, like there's just these characters that people want more of all the time. And I think Vader, when you get down to it, because I mean, famously, Snell always says, nothing's canon until you see it in a movie. So, like, all of these badass moments in comics, I love comics. I'll read them every single day if I need to. I've seen a lot of stories with Darth Vader. But would I like to see that in live action? Hell yes. I would really love to. And that's why like you mentioned this moment of like, oh, well, if Darth Vader's meditating, you see like a nightmare or something. And famously, there's this issue in Charles Soule's run, like one of the last issues that kind of put into question like the fate and destiny of Darth Vader, and it had like this nightmarish like vision of Padme in that, and that's immediately what I thought of when you said that. Uh, Travis also says one idea in the first draft of Return of the Jedi was Obi-Wan physically returning from the dead in the end. I think having Anakin be so powerful that he manifests himself physically would be cool. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I've agreed with you up to this point, Travis, I think, but I don't like that idea. So I'm sorry.
Well, because you famously in comics, in both Marvel and DC, people have come back from the dead. That's never happened in Star Wars.
It doesn't need to because sometimes they're just rules. No, and like Palpatine figures out how to like save himself from dying, and like you could maybe in theory play into that. I just
Oh
don't
my
think it
god,
needs to
Anakin
happen.
was cloned? Did Palpatine save some of Darth Vader's blood?
I mean, he could have. He could have. He
And
had all the
then
body parts taken off
and
of him to
then
get to like
and
something.
and, and then they find it after the Rise of Skywalker. More so the idea he can do it once, kicks some ass, then goes back could work. Uh, Again, fans like to be serviced. That's fan service. I'm gonna like it at the moment, but then when I question it later on, I'm gonna be like, why did they do that? Like I love the idea because again, it goes back to the origins of like anything is possible within the comic book industry and comic book storytelling. And I mean, the Lucasfilm and Star Wars has entered the comic book realm of things, so why not, right? Uh, but if you do it, the only problem then becomes why hasn't Yoda come back? Why hasn't Obi-Wan come back? Is Luke Skywalker coming back? Mark Hamill, are you going to be Luke Skywalker again? And he's going to have to answer that question over and over and over again after that. Like it's
I
it's
think it
going
just
to open
opens
up
too
a
many
can of
cans of
worms.
worms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So the last part of this interview is actually just something I found really funny. And just shows you how stupid some British royals are. Is Prince Charles at the Phantom Menace premiere uh asked Natalie Portman if she was in the originals.
Oh boy.
And she said, "No, I'm 18." And like, okay, like, do you just get that much plastic surgery? And if not, why do you look so dumb right now as like the
Like
ruler of the British Empire? But
gosh, she really put him on blast like that. That's wild. Um yeah, I'm sorry. Like I okay, so how old is Prince Charles at the time? Because he was
um
how old is
King
he now?
Charles the Third, because Google's not gonna like me looking up Prince Charles. I'm sorry. I typed the second, was born 1948. So
Okay,
calculator.
okay, okay. Hold. So it wasn't okay. I'm thinking of a different prince then. So it was Charles the Third that was asking her.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so I
current
mean
King of England.
that's not that bad. I thought it was one of the current princes. I was like, hold on a second. Like after you said it, I was like,
At the
wait, they were
premiere of The
only.
Phantom Menace?
I was gonna say they're only like at that point like 15 or whatever. Uh Natalie could have played a baby Ewok in the originals. Who knows? Um, Even then, I don't think she could have. Oh well, hold on. Uh, I maybe the last one. I mean,
Return of
that's
the
the only one with
Jedi.
Ewoks, so I think so.
Yeah, 1983,
And she was born in
81.
81? Maybe, maybe. That's hilarious though. I think that is absolutely hilarious.
All right, so the next bit of kind of news we have to talk about is kind of show related stuff. So the Disney Plus UK account tweeted out a picture of upcoming shows in 2024. And for Star Wars, they only included The Acolyte and the Skeleton Crew. Now, we know Bad Batch season 3 is coming. Point blank.
Yes.
Like, how long you gonna hold an animated project? Like, not forever, because we all know how Star
Hopefully.
Wars is feeling about animation right now. And Jennifer Corbett said on December 2nd, so last Friday, she said, toasting to the final mix session for the Bad Batch. What a pleasure to watch David W. Collins and team in action. Can't wait for you all to see what's in store for the final season. So everything's done for the Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought they were toasting to starting the final mix, but no, it's the final mix. Like they are
Yeah,
done. Um I Okay, so do you think with them only announcing formally, quote unquote, because I don't think Star Wars has officially stated anything yet.
correct.
Um, with them only stating that they're going to be putting only 2 series out, do we get the Bad Batch season 2 treatment? Hey, it's coming out in spring. Hey, it's coming out in summer. Hey, it's coming out in fall.
Why would
Actually, I
you
think it's going
hold
to come out in the winter. Like,
you okay, so you had to so we all figured that Andor season 2 is not coming out in 2024 with the strike. They've still got about 4 weeks of filming left. Like, it just doesn't seem likely that 12 episodes for Andor season 2 would be ready to go by 2024. They could have the beginning, but it has felt like Lucasfilm likes to have everything done for the show before doing any, hey, it's going to be on Disney Plus at this point kind of thing.
yeah.
And yes, Travis brings up a good point. It's unlikely, but possible Bad Batch. They drop Bad Batch Christmas of this year. Doubtful though, especially with What If and everything. Uh,
Yeah,
like
that weird
dropping.
schedule for What If is probably going to keep Disney Plus very congested in the sense of not being
Yeah,
able to push any new content out.
especially with Percy Jackson. And I know Snell is like, Percy Jackson's not going to be popular, Katie. I think Percy Jackson's going to be very popular. Um,
I will go ahead and say that I don't think it's going to do anything like the MCU levels of
correct.
interest, but I
I
do
think
think
it's
it's going to bring in a lot of numbers.
I think it's gonna hit middle, so it won't be like the Disney Plus originals, like some like what would you find on like Disney on cable, for instance.
Okay.
It's not gonna do those numbers, but I think it'll like come close to some of like the MCU and the Star Wars movies. Sorry, for some reason my brain's moving too fast.
It'll
Um,
be interesting for sure. I also am very doubtful of the Bad Batch coming out this year. Um, I'm also very doubtful of it possibly coming out next year or the year after that. Depending on how Lucasfilm decides what to do, which is absolutely insane considering the very high praise that Star Wars animation gets every single year. They're always so hesitant for like and again, Bad Batch season 1 was not well received. I think it started off great and then people fell off hard near the end. A lot of people called it a cameo fest and just kind of, throwing in these characters to kind of tie in some things, but not really telling a story. And we partly agreed, but the story got so good in season 2.
Yeah.
And so I think honestly, just drop it. Give it like I'm not gonna say drop it in the spring because I really want not Andor, Acolyte to be in the spring.
Yeah.
But like right after Acolyte, just throw it out there. Just hey, here it is, like the first 2 episodes, and then everything else after that. Do you think they would be harsh enough to be like, okay, we're just gonna drop everything and drop the entire season?
I don't think so. It might depend on how What If does. Um, with What If doing that schedule, they might be like, okay, we're gonna do the same exact thing for Bad Batch. I
Yeah.
would hope not. I don't trust it. I'm hoping because the other thing that we had to really talk about with the shows, was that a couple scoopers online are saying that Skeleton Crew is actually going to potentially be airing holiday season of 2024, even though the show has been done filming, which to your point, they could delay Bad Batch out that long. But with the strike that's happened and the MCU delaying so much content, like even before the strike happened, the MCU was delaying content.
But I'm also curious if like is what is Jude Law up to for the rest of the year? Is he going to be on other press tours? Is he going to be filming things? Like, is he not going to be available at like the perfect time to be able to really push this show for a press tour? You know, um,
So currently he is filming The Order, and the only thing on his television schedule right now is The Skeleton Crew. Um, he's completed all of his stuff for 2023, which was Peter Pan and Wendy, Firebrand, and the Marvels. And the only thing on Wikipedia is the Order film, which is a crime thriller. So,
in that case, I'm I really need an updated schedule for Disney Marvel Lucasfilm. Since the writer strike and actor strike has been over, there has been a lot of delays, and I just can't keep up with everything. I need something written down, printed, whatever, that tells me, hey, this is when all of this is coming out. Because even if Skeleton Crew isn't like stapled to a date on that, I can at least see where everything else is and be like, okay, this makes sense for this to be here.
right. But Lucasfilm did that. They did that at Star Wars Celebration and said, this is the rest of the shows you can expect in 2024 or in 2023, and
But
didn't put
that was
Skeleton Crew out.
it was still filming at that point.
I don't think so.
Was it not?
By Star Wars Celebration, it was done.
It was done. Hmm. But they didn't do I don't remember talking about, like, any
Because they put the
interviews.
trailer a trailer out,
They put
and
the trailer out,
they
but
didn't
they
put, like, an official trailer out.
yeah,
Um,
they didn't put an official trailer out, so still nobody has seen anything.
mhm.
Um, but they didn't even have a panel for it, from what I remember.
Yeah, it was included in the Mandoverse stuff. They did not get a dedicated panel.
Yeah. So I'm really curious because we had also heard there being reports on it being a bad experience in filming. There was some
Mhm.
drama there. Is that what's holding this thing back? Like, what is it that like is getting them, because for me, content is content. If it's finished, put it out there. Make your money. Get those subscribers for the limited time that you're getting those subscribers for, and get that money. Why the delay?
Yeah. I don't get it. I like, I would have said it's gonna come out before The Acolyte, but they may be building on the hype for The Acolyte and trying to play into the release schedule for the High Republic. Maybe that's another reason they put the delays in the books, because we get Escape from Valo in January and then Defy the Storm in March. And then the next book is the next adult book, and it's supposed to be out in the summer. So there's a
So you
huge gap
think
right
you
there.
have a big enough break for both the Acolyte and the Skeleton Crew to be there?
I would say probably just the Acolyte, maybe playing off of the Defy the Storm stuff with Vernestra being in it. Like,
Mhm.
especially because we know where Vernestra is at right now. Like after the Tales of Light and Life. So it makes sense, I think, to me to put the Acolyte first, because maybe you've had like this specific idea of, okay, I'm gonna put this show out on this date because this book comes out on this date.
Yeah.
They're not that smart, but that would be my hope.
No, and that's exactly what we had said when we made that prediction in the first place, and we were worried that the strike actually delayed that, and then, it wouldn't sync up all that well. They could still do it perfectly, but we highly doubt it.
Yeah. And like a couple people on this tweet thread with Star Wars News Net say, like, this could just be referring to like new shows that are coming. It's just confirmation that the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew are coming in 2024. Nothing is X'd out really from this, because I think Echo was the only show mentioned for Marvel on this post from Disney Plus UK.
Yeah.
So, in a new press release from, and there's supposed to be 3 Disney Plus shows from Marvel next year, right? Or is there only gonna be 2?
I could not tell you.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah,
out of the loop.
I probably should have known that when you said I need a written down schedule for
Exactly.
just pregnancy brain. I forgot
It's
already.
all good. But talking about shows, you posted this really funny TikTok about Ahsoka. Um, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious because later that day, there's actually a TikTok with the actors of Sabine and Shin, and they kind of just do this really funny thing. But uh, just like this person here posting this TikTok on Twitter, they were flabbergasted because it seems that Star Wars is in support of Sabine and Shin ship. So what are we calling this ship? Because I know a lot of
Wolf
people.
Rin.
Wolf Rin.
Yep, because it's oh, because like the whole wolf motif, I think, with her.
Yeah,
Um
Shin is a. uh I was telling Chris about this, our co-host for Star Wars or Marvel Alliance, that Shin and Balin Skull, uh, they are actually uh, kind of ideals of like Greek mythology and stuff like that. Uh,
yeah.
so Shin does like it's supposed to be a wolf. So that I think that's really cool considering everything with rebels and wolves. I
Yeah.
think it's very classy. Um,
Yeah.
but it shows the actor playing Ezra saying there's gonna be lightsabers at this party, and then we see the actress of Shin running down the hall saying Sabine Wren will also be at the party, and I thought that was hilarious. Um,
Yes, it was so good, and it was on the official post because Aman Esfandi, Ivana Sakno, and Natasha Liu Bordizzo have been doing a lot of press
Mm-hmm.
for Ahsoka after the fact, probably just playing into their contracts. Disney just moved the promotion of the show to now. But they were all at the Lucasfilm Studios building. Was it yesterday that this was? I
I
think it
think it
was
was 2 days
yesterday,
ago.
2 days ago. Just like hanging out, filming TikToks. Aman Esfandi actually took over the social media accounts for Star
I
Wars.
love his post with all of the name tags of
It was
Ezra's
so good.
aliases. It was so good.
I loved it. It was great. But the other thing that has come out with the Ahsoka promotion, other than all of the really cute PR videos, um, Dave Filoni, talking about Sabine in particular, in this case, says anyone can become a Jedi if they receive enough training. If you pay attention to the films, he says, you understand that the Force is an energy field created by all living things, but it takes time and commitment. And I know you had some words about this, and I kind of have some words about this, but we are running out of time to talk about our book. So,
Yes, all I'm gonna say is that I disagree with Dave Filoni. It's one of the only times that I do. And my one reasoning, because we had a conversation about this in Star Wars Alliance, was in the chat of Star Wars Alliance. I said everything is the Force. Not everyone has the capability to manipulate it at will, like those who become Jedi or Sith. Um, because we even talked about it with Snell, and he said George said everyone had the Force as well, so I'll allow it, even though I don't love it. Um, what about you?
yeah, I mean, Qui-Gon talks about it in The Phantom Menace that everybody has midi-chlorians and it just all kind of depends on your count, which does we talked about it when Sabine was confirmed to be training as a Jedi. Like, okay, everybody has the Force in some way, shape, or form. But, like, does that mean that, like, everybody can? It's just, like, people don't put in enough effort, and, like, I've been reading, Jedi Search for our topic next week, and, like, just seeing how Leia does her training, in that book, like, it just kind of falls in line with this. Like, Leia has so much potential in the Force, but she doesn't put enough effort into using it and hits several blockers as she remains a politician. Like Luke technically, and this is skipping ahead some, but Luke technically passes her as a Jedi Knight, like, um, like, before the Yuzon Vong, I think, but at the end of the Yuzon Vong, she actually resigns as a politician and apprentices herself becoming a Padawan again so that she can actually learn and focus on her Jedi training and stuff. So it's playing off of those themes. And again, I don't really mind it. I just don't want it to be like, oh, now everybody can use the Force. Like, we're going to throw all this stuff in here. Like, Poe can now use the Force, even though Poe doesn't seem to have any, like, connection to the Force. Like Finn, yes, but like we don't need like Wedge Antilles. Like, oh yeah, now I can lift things.
Well, I just want to, before we jump into our review, well, Travis even says, with Finn, I saw it as the Force needed normal people as well as Force users in order for there to be true balance. The Force using normal people with strong will, having strong will as vessels. I like that idea. I think that is kind
Yeah,
of cool. Um, our friend Stu over at Twitter, he posted this on Twitter and he said, everyone can do the Force with enough practice. It's just some people are more gifted with it and it comes more easily to them. Cool. So why are we constantly seeing the ones with the natural gift depicted as the MVPs instead of the ones who had to work hardest for it? And he also snapped back with the most interesting thing that can be done with the Force is conceptually for me is the idea that no one is meant to be able to wield it, and that even the light side users are taking some away from the universe and fostering an endless light dark cycle and conflict as a result. And that is why I messaged him and said, "Hey, you should be reading the High Republic then."
Yes.
Specifically phase 2. And it definitely bleeds into what has become just all encompassing with the High Republic with phase 1 and even the start of phase 3. So if anybody is interested in that type of thinking of like, hey, like just using the Force overall is bad, definitely read the High Republic.
Yes. Travis, this made me chuckle. What Dave is saying, I think, is midichlorians are like metabolism. Anyone can get a six pack, but for some, it's easier than others due to genetics. Oh fucking yes.
That
Oh
is
yes.
that is so true.
The last thing, and this is just because I saw it on Twitter before we get to our book. Apparently the Saturn Awards have nominated Giancarlo Esposito for Best Guest Star in a television series for his role as Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian season 3. Congratulations, sir! Like, I did think you did an incredible job in season 3. So, all right. So, Lords of the Sith. Now, this was, and I kind of quote, okay, so there were two books published in 2014 that are canon, Tarkin and A New Dawn, which are both Imperial era books. And this is to answer your question from earlier about like it being one of the first. In 2015, there was 6 books published in 2015 by um Random House Worlds, Del Rey at the time. So the first one was Heir to the Jedi by Kevin Hearn, and that was March 3rd. Lords of the Sith, which is what we're going to be talking about today, was April 28th. And then Dark Disciple by Christy Golden was July 7th. Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, September 4th. And then Battlefront Twilight Company by Alexander Freed, November 3rd. So, just so because I was looking in my hardcover book, which was one of it's a first edition, and I was like, "There's this many books on the timeline already? Like what?" So, like all of these, like they publish things on the timeline after the fact. If you know, like they're all being published. So there's a lot of books in 2015. Um, but Lords of the Sith is officially number 4 that was published for Star Wars canon. And
Okay.
the author for this book is Paul S. Kemp, and he actually had the very first Star Wars canon LGBTQ character, Moth Moors. So,
Yes. Yes. Uh which is a very interesting character
yes.
in this book. Um so what I love about this book, right off the bat, is I love that in some sort of way, the first building blocks of the rebellion start with Hera's father.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we understand that the empire is all encompassing, it's evil, and there's a large galaxy, and there's probably a lot of people all around this galaxy that have the idea of like, hey, we should fight against this. But making it a staple in this book to verbalize it and say like this movement, because it started off not as a galactic rebellion, but they called themselves the Free Ryloth movement. That I think, like, throughout the entire book, it's like, okay, we're gonna make Ryloth free, and then it just grows. Like, it becomes so much more than they can handle, and at the end, remind me of his name, Jem, uh, or Hera's father, uh,
Cham.
Jam. Uh, he he
Cham.
how Jam
Cham. Cham.
Cham Cham. Okay, sorry. I listening it at 2.7 speed sounds like Jam. So Cham, he at the very end of the book, and I know we're going to be jumping all over the place, but this whole idea of the free Ryloth movement, he has made these statements throughout the book that it's like, you know, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I'm not the leader that you want me to be. And then as the book goes further, he's like, okay, this is something that I need to do. And it literally becomes a building block of the rebellion. And I
Yep.
love that. I absolutely love that.
Um, yeah, no, this was one of the very first canon books I read, and it's just a fun adventure getting to learn a lot about Palpatine and Vader, because this is I would say this is relatively very early in uh Vader's transition into the dark side. Um, and like uh obviously we see Cham in the Bad Batch and everything. I would say this is after that at this point. Um, but yeah, it like Palpatine, it's so funny. He's just having a blast on Rayla.
I
He's just
this
chuckling and
entire
just
book,
like,
he so this idea, he possesses this power, uh, of course, using the Force that helps him basically see the future.
mm,
Um, and I want to know, do you think, and I don't know if this was ever confirmed anywhere else in any other book, but there comes a time in this book where Vader and Palpatine are talking, and they're talking about the destiny of Vader. They're talking about what his ultimate destiny is going to be because they talk about the relationship between master and apprentice when it comes to the Sith. The apprentice must eventually face the master, kill him, and then that's just the way the rule of two works. But there's a moment where Palpatine says, "Ah, yes, I've seen your future," and he talks about like he questions it and something else. Do you think at that time, of course, we with the knowledge of the original trilogy, we know what's ultimately going to happen. But with this ultimately set in the timeline, do you think Palpatine knew that Vader was going to kill him because of Luke Skywalker?
I don't know about Luke Skywalker. Um, like if he saw Luke in the future, I would say he probably had some idea that like a rogue Jedi was gonna come after him. Um, but I have to wonder if that's why maybe he was a little shocked when things like came down to it. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought
Just
about that.
because again, I listened to this book like 10 times in like 2 weeks. So I do have a lot of questions. So there's another moment where Vader and Palpatine are about to fly off of the oh shoot, what is the ship that's about to go down that eventually blows up?
Perilous.
The Perilous. It's about to blow up at this time. They're about to take off in Palpatine's second ship that he secretly had on the Perilous. Um, and he tells Vader, "Oh, we've had moments like this before." It's actually they're crashing into Ryloth at this point. They're flying into the Ryloth atmosphere. Vader has already had a little bit of his like visions and looking into his past and things like that. But he tells Palpatine tells Vader, "Oh, we've been in moments like this before." And he's talking about the time where they had to crash land onto Coruscant after the rescue
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Count Dooku. So that, but immediately after that, he says, and at other times. He told Vader that there was other times where him and possibly Anakin were on the same ship. I don't remember any Clone Wars episodes where where Darth Palpatine was out and about being his Palpatine self, Sidious self, uh, while Obi-Wan and Anakin were like on a mission. Do you have any idea
Um,
what he was talking about?
so the closest one that I would say in my head would be the Zillo Beast on Coruscant, where Anakin
Oh,
has to
that's
save Palpatine.
true.
They're not on the same ship, but Anakin has to save Palpatine. The other thing you could possibly say is, and I just don't know how Palpatine would have done this being Chancellor, but he could have been like, "Oh, I'm gonna go take a vacation," and then kind of hidden himself. We know, like, there's hollow masks, you can use tons of prosthetics to hide yourself. And he could have easily, knowing that the Jedi Council is talking to the Chancellor, he could have easily known, okay, this is the mission that Obi-Wan is going on, and gone and hung out on that planet so that he could monitor
And it
Anakin
was very
and kind of
odd
see his
because
progress.
when he makes this statement in Lords of the Sith, even Vader like looks at him like, "What are you talking about?" Like that's like,
He could
oh,
also be speaking from, like, the potential for the future and just kind of, because we know he was attempting to clone himself at this point to kind of,
mhm.
um, satiate the Sith, in himself and everything. He could have had, like, a crazed moment where he was combining the future and just kind of stating, like, "Oh, we'll have more of
And
these." But
I love the way the narration, like this entire book, as odd as it sounds, is about relationships. It's the relationship between Palpatine and Vader. It's the relationship between Cham and oh shoot, what is her name? What is her name?
it's fall.
Uh Isval, yes.
And
Her and
for
Isval.
disclaimer, I have the Wikipedia in front of me.
Okay. And then
So
uh uh and I should probably bring it up as well because I can't remember like I said, I listened to this book like 10 times, but I don't know any of the names of these characters. Uh the traitor on
Belcor.
Belcor, like the relationship between Cham and Belcor, like uh and the relationship between Moth Morris and Belcor as well. Like this entire book is about relationships. And the really funny thing is the way that this book was written, they purposely talked about like how Vader never lies to Palpatine and how uh Belcor is like a perfect liar and all of these different things. But I love that like the perfect liar being Belcor
Mhm.
got the short end of the stick at the very end of the day. Like
Yeah.
it's so sweet to kind of get those different things in the book. Um
While you
I
think of your next point, I just wanna acknowledge what Travis is saying. Um, so going back to you talking about, did Palpatine know that Luke and Vader were gonna help kill Palpatine? He said, "I see it that he knew Luke was going to kill Vader, not counting on Luke pulling back at the last second." And then with Palpatine talking about how they've crashed multiple occasions, he said, "I guess you could see it as Palpatine further hinting he helped create Anakin, influencing his dreams, and that he's been with him a lot longer than he may think," which is a very good
I
point.
that is a very good point, and I really do like that. Um, this book also had uh very, very not so subtle racism with
With
Twi'leks.
Felix. Yeah.
but also a very, very subtle hint of racism in the one and only clone in
Yep.
this book who doesn't get a name.
Yeah, and Travis mentioned that. He said, "I do wish the 2 guards, the clone in particular, got more characterization."
So
Um,
I noticed that on like my third listen, Sergeant D's like on like my second listen, I was like, oh, so the clone is named D's, just like how Six was named Sixes and all of. So I was like, Sergeant D's, okay. Like I wonder why he gave him that name. Well, on my third and fourth listen to, I was like, wait, no, no, no. D's is the other guard.
yep.
Captain he only has a title. He doesn't have a name. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, he's a clone. He doesn't get a name. That's such
and
a racist thing.
even Vader talks about, Sergeant Dees and is like, "Yeah, he's got these tattoos on his cheeks, and if he was a clone, he would have probably been nicknamed Ink."
Ink. Yeah.
But, like, they never give the clone a name, and that honestly surprises me with Vader. Um, I do see because I looked at the Minot Manor review, um, because I always like looking at the reviews, after I read something just to kind of, like, refresh my, brain with things, and apparently, because this is an old article, there were some issues with Kemp potentially taking on the first LGBTQ character and then, like, the racism. I can't find what that is though, but I did just wanna, like, call it out and, like, say that people were a little concerned about so, yeah.
But like then you need to understand like one of the biggest parts of the empire, of course, like guys,
Yeah.
you need to
Is
understand
the racism against aliens.
the empire is just like Nazi Germany. Let's just be real here. And then like th- like you said, they were racist against all alien life forms, and even in this book, like there's a point where Vader is force choking the senator Tar,
Oh,
and we see, I think one of the captains or generals of a ship is like, what, this Twi'lek trash is a traitor? And it's like
yep.
it's hardcore, like it is like right there in your face. They're not like
Mhm.
letting anything slide. And you guys need to understand I'm not getting excited because of the racism. I'm just like I'm getting excited because of how real this book is compared to anything else in the Legends books that we've read so far. So here, this is actually, like you said, canon. So I'm really glad that this is canon. This was such a breath of fresh air for me. Getting those really badass moments with Darth Vader, like him 99.9% of the time that he is in this book, he is using the force, whether it's to augment his speed, to control his uh, trajectory in flying freely in space when he boards an imperial ship. Like he does so many cool things in this book. Like there's even a moment like in the very beginning of the book when he recaptures basically the imperial ship that was stolen from them, and he kills the captain of that ship, and Cham is like listening to it. And
Mhm.
or well no, 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 he when he first boards the ship, he kills the one guard that was there, and then he just starts breathing into the comm unit, and they're like, who is that,
Mhm.
who is that? And all you hear is Darth Vader say, I'm coming for you next. And then he crushes I was like, oh my God. Like I'm freaking out listening to this thing while I'm driving. Excuse me, while I'm driving for work. It is like literally, guys, I don't know how many times I have to say this. As an audio engineer, it's something that I absolutely love. But if you don't have Audible, get Audible. Like we aren't sponsored at all. It is just if you don't have any free time to sit down and read something, listen to it, and it's just absolutely amazing.
Yep, for sure. Um, and this is a great production. Like, it's got all, like, the beeps, like, I think it's Isval who says something like, um, and where is that incessant beeping coming from? And there's actual beeping going on the
Yeah. No,
production.
no, it's
And
not Isabel. At that time, it was Moth Mars.
oh yeah,
She is coming back after being knocked unconscious with her ship being attacked by Isval.
yeah. That's why I was thinking it was Isval, because yeah. Um, Travis says, kind of a stretch, but given the French accents of the Twi'leks, I figured they may be an allegory to the French Revolution. Completely plausible, I
Yeah,
think.
I could see that for sure.
And I do appreciate that they've taken strides to kind of give some of the alien races accents that can
Hmm.
like give them a mirror image in our day-to-day world. Um for so you talked about the action, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy the action, but there's a lot of action, and sometimes it just feels like we get
There's a
an
lot
action
of
scene.
unneeded action also, I will say
Yeah,
that. So there is a good chunk of chapters where Isfal, Cham, and his team, when they are on Ryloth, when they're dealing with them in the
yeah,
wilds of Ryloth, I didn't need that. Like every single time that I listened to it, I was like, "Oh, I there's something new that I heard there." I didn't need it because
yeah,
we already knew the dangers. Like I get what I knew what is it Kemp that did this book? Um
yeah,
I understand what they were trying to do with the idea of like, here, let's show how much that these people are struggling compared to how Sidious and Vader are just like destroying this planet on their own. And of course, they're supposed to be showing like how powerful Palpatine is with being able to use his strength for the first, like, well, not the first time, but like out in the open and people are witnessing it and stuff. Totally understandable. But I didn't need the comparison. I just
yeah,
really wanted to see Vader and Palpatine kick ass. That's all I needed. Um, the idea also of like the political back and forth of like who the traitor is. I think that went on a little too much, like it bouncing
yeah,
from Moth Mars to Belcor, and then Belcor talking to like other underlings and trying to convince them some stuff. Like we knew from the very beginning that Belcor was sleazy and he was like trying to, eventually become Moth and all of these things. We didn't need too much of that. I did like the the parts where him and Shem were talking and like secured locations and like there's one moment where Chem was like, "Are you willing to die for the Empire? Are you willing to die for your cause?" And he like pulls out a pit like a freaking blaster right to Belcor's face, and Belcor's like, "No, no, I'm not ready to die. Like, don't kill me." Like,
yeah,
I loved because that showed his cowardice as well because we already knew it, but we just needed that moment as well. Um, I loved those moments, but I do think there was a lot of meat and potatoes here in like I I I wanted meat and potatoes. I didn't need all the vegetables, you know, when it comes to
yeah.
the soup.
I can definitely see that. Because like, and the it might have been that they just kind of struggled with this being one of the first ones to go like, okay, what do we need? How do we make the canon books feel different than legends? Because again, I've read most of the canon books. I have not read all of them. A lot of the earlier ones I've kind of missed. Um, but like Shadows of the Sith felt like the first Legends book where they were like, okay, I feel safe to dive back into this realm of things. And Paul Kemp actually did write a Legends book. He wrote Deceived, which I hated. By the way, spoiler alert. Um, but it's like I feel like they were experimenting a ton in like the first couple of years just to try and figure out what is gonna work and what's gonna stick.
Yeah.
Um, Travis said action and text can be difficult to comprehend, especially space battles for me. I'm always lost in the X-Wing books. I actually find that I'm the opposite. Action with like lightsaber battles, unless it's the High Republic. High Republic has been a little bit different, but like action sequences on a planet are very hard for me to go, okay, wait, who's firing at who? Whereas like the X-Wing books by Stackpole and Alston, I was like, yeah, I love this. Like I know exactly who's doing what.
So I can agree with Travis if you don't know the terminology. So the when talking about like the bow and the port and all of these very not so general audience like friendly ship terms and plane terms technically. So like I totally agree. Like when you're talking about banking left, banking right, doing all these other things, it can get confusing. Um so I can agree. I can only imagine what my first uh X-Wing book is gonna feel like. Like, I think I'm gonna have to listen to that one several times because it's not like a hey, I just need to read this really quick before the podcast. It's gonna be something that I need to listen to a couple days and probably weeks in advance.
Probably the Back to War, I would say, is where like the biggest space battles are. Cause like Rogue Squadron and then Wedge's Gamble, I think are the first two. And it's a lot of training missions, but the Back to War gets insane. We're gonna have to do that next year. We're gonna have to put that on the schedule.
All right, I can definitely do that. Um, trying to ask you some questions here. Um, so what did you feel about uh what is her name again? Um
Isval, Morsh.
Isval's. Yes. How did you feel about Isval's uh rogue mission to the Octagon where she used to be enslaved, should you say? We learn that she uh escaped the Octagon, several years ago with the help of Chem and everything else. But like her personal mission, Chem wants to save the planet, eventually save the galaxy, whereas Isval was like, "That's too big for me. I need to look on a smaller scale." With her saving these other Twi'leks that are enslaved, and using that as an actual like, hey, I'm only really doing this as a release so that way I can kill Imperials also. How do you feel about that when you first read it?
When I first read it, oh gosh, like I think I was dealing with like my own like sexual assault, like, at that point, like, coming to terms with that. So, it really hit me in the gut, I felt like,
Mhm.
when I first read this in college. Um, Now I go back and forth between being proud for Isval, but then, like, also, like, the whole, like, "Oh, yeah, we need to just kill any and everybody we can," kind of thing. Or, like, talking about Imperials. Though they
Well,
do come down to, like, ending up like, do we need to kill Twi'leks at the end of this to take out Vader? Like, which I
I
thought was
really like
intense.
her. I like her story though.
Yeah.
Like the evolution of her story is that she's like this ruthless killer, but like she has this sweet spot for Cham. And like we see this moment where she's in the octagon where she wants to save these Twi'leks that are enslaved. She saves this one woman, Ryan. Ryan saves this Imperial, basically saying, like, hey, just don't kill him. And even Isfal says, like, why? Like, why should I not kill this
Yep.
person? And Ryan says, it's gotta stop sometime. Like, like, don't you want it to stop? And she even goes back to the Imperial and it's like, she saved your life, but you still owe me blood. And she just wails on him and wails on him and
Yep.
wails on him. And it's because of this, like, she even says, if I'm the monster, the Empire made me. Like, this is who I am now. But you go all the way through the story with her in this like bloodlust for Vader for what he has done to her people and to all of her friends. And then at the very end, because unfortunately Isval does not make it out of this book alive, she does get captured eventually by Palpatine, by Vader, and she
All
has
in the
this.
name of saving Cham so he could go back to his daughter.
Yes, but the I love this line in the book. She says, "You need to understand, like, you're killing just to kill. What I am doing, I did out of love. You know, I may be a murderous monster, but what I did was for love." And then Vader says, "I know exactly what you mean," and then freaking cuts off her head.
Yes.
And I'm like,
I was
"Oh,
listening to that.
I
Oh, like,
love it."
oh, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I forgot how intense that part feels.
Mhm.
Like, just at the end where you're like, oh my gosh. And that's a parallel right there, guys. Oh,
It's
oh,
so good. It's so, so good. And even within that conversation, when she gets captured, Palpatine just basically just breaks everything down for her. It's like, "Oh, you thought this was, you know, the kindling of your rebellion, but in fact, nothing is going to work out for you." And there's a moment where he actually says something that Chem actually said to her, and she's just like, "I can't believe I'm hearing the exact same words, the same warning that Chem gave me, and the Emperor is spilling it out at me." Like,
yep.
she just couldn't take it anymore. Um, but you know, that ultimately comes out to Chem does make the realization, like, this is bigger than me, and I do have to lead it. I do have to do something for the greater good of the galaxy. So,
And he figures it out, which is interesting because, I mean, I think at this point we didn't have Rebels. So to see who he is in Rebels compared to this, and now I know, shows, books, like it's always going to be the pyramid that matters, but it's just interesting. And to think about how this could like play in like towards the future,
well,
especially as we get more about Hera in shows.
I even like there's like the moment where he is listening to the comm unit and he's hearing Vader like completely dismantle the ship, and
Yep.
he has these like PTSD moments of the Clone Wars. He's like, that's the sound of the Jedi, but now there is no Jedi. There's only Darth Vader. Uh, and so like it does very much bleed into his appearances in Clone Wars, in the Bad Batch, in Rebels. So I think it works out perfectly. You can literally just look at the timeline, slide this right in with both Clone Wars and Rebels, and I think it works perfectly.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We talked about Palpatine uh being just it feels like that Lego Vacation movie where Palpatine's just like
He's
like the
having the
whole time.
time of his life, with it absolutely wild because there's just so much going on around him, and he's just like, "Yeah, we're good. Like, let the hunt begin." And like, "Oh, now the real party starts," and like all of
Yeah.
these different things. Oh, my favorite line of his that actually made me laugh so hard is they crash land on Ryloth, and he is like basically scolding Vader, like, you know, "Don't let this happen again. Like, I know that you're more competent as a pilot. You know, what were you
Yeah.
thinking?" But then he's like, "There's 4 people dead on this ship." And Vader's like, "I don't know how you know that there's 4 people dead, but let's go check them out." And that's when they get the royal guards, and he sees the 3 other dead people, and then one of the guy's legs twitch, and he's like, "There's only 3 people dead." And Vader and Palpatine's like, oh, is there? And the royal guard is like, oh, you need to understand this person did not secure himself well in the ship. So when we crashed, he got knocked unconscious. And Palpatine tells the guard, kill him. And the guard kills him. And he tells Vader, now there's four dead.
Because Palpatine's word is law. Like, I bet if Vader hadn't said anything, the guy would have lived.
He
Like,
probably would have, but like it the ultimate story of this whole thing with that one moment, and Vader even said like thinks about it. It's like it's not the like because ultimately Palpatine does say like he was stupid, like, and
yeah.
I cannot have stupid people around me. It's going to either cost me my life
Mhm.
or somebody else's life that I need. Like, so, and because he said stupidity is weakness. And just like nostalgia, because he's talking about how Vader is looking back at his past, and at the time of the crash, he was thinking about Mace Windu, he was thinking about Padme, he was thinking about Obi-Wan, Mustafar, like all of these different things. He's like, yeah, keep your mind on the goal and don't be stupid was basically Palpatine's ultimate lesson there.
Yep. The only other thing I think, and actually, again, Ryan at My Knock Manor threw this out because I didn't even consider this. So Cham has an additional source in the Empire, like base camp outside of Belcor, but it's never revealed who that person is. Um, it's not a huge detail, but it does seem a little like he says it seems an odd one to keep under wraps. His theory is that his source inside Moore's retinue was Hera, seeing as she kept Twi'leks around her all the time and he'd not worry about her since she'd be protected up on Moore's moon base during everything. However, he does call his source a male, so that kind of throws the theory out the window, but he could also be trying to throw
To
off
protect
uh
his own
Iswell
daughter.
to
Yeah.
protect Hera. Yeah. So,
I
um,
like that
I just
theory.
found that interesting because Hera's probably like 16, 17 at this point. Um, so I like, yes, Hera's getting involved young, kind of thing.
I really like this. There's a moment in this book where Chem is basically telling Belcor like everything that's going to happen. He's like, "Hey,
Mhm.
let me break it down to you, and this is our plan." And Belcor is so astounded by all of the information that Chem has, and that he underestimated him, and he feels like a fool, and all of these other things, and it's because of that inside source. Because there's even a time where Belcor's like, "Oh, so your spies are good. Like you have really good spies. Cool, good for you." Like, trying to stay on top of things. But ultimately, like Chem is a great leader, and he's in this position for a reason, to have these people in place to be able to manipulate. You know, he was able to manipulate Belcor, and Belcor basically freaking uh freaking Chem would ask, "Hey, jump," and Belcor would ask, "How high?" Like that's basically what their relationship was. So I could totally see Chem having multiple people around the galaxy, doing these things, but knowing that Hera is there, I think that's really cool.
Um, I don't really have anything else on this book. I do think it I would say it probably hasn't aged as well as I thought it would have coming back to read it. So I think when I just rated it on Goodreads earlier today, I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. So, yeah. But I still think it's a really good book. I love getting into Palpatine and Vader's relationship. It's just so fun to see the two together. And like you said, Palpatine doesn't get to get out very often and use his lightsaber. So,
I Well, with this being my first time reading it, 10 times in 2 weeks. Uh,
That's your own fault. You could have been
I
reading Percy
I
Jackson.
I really dug this. I really did. Um, I'm actually reading here. Travis says probably not an intentional callback, but I think the first time they crash on Ryloth in the Clone Wars, Rex isn't secured and goes flying in the back of the ship. I think
That's a
that's
really good callback.
I think that's a really cool callback. While they're actually falling into Ryloth, he does think about Ahsoka, so I thought that was pretty
Mhm.
cool. But this being my first time reading this book, I really loved it. Like I said, there's some moments in this book that like really didn't need like the time of day. Um, like all the things with Chem and Isval and the tracker trying to find Vader. Uh, they could have cut it in half probably, because again, it was just like, oh, I can't believe these two individuals are so strong that they can make it out here in the wild. You know, these creatures, the lilacs, they are an apex predator. Like, how could Vader possibly survive this entire horde? Like that stuff I didn't need. Now, again, Vader freaking throwing his lightsaber into a lilac's queen and being a badass, and even like they did the freaking force like alley oop. Sidious and Vader did the force alley oop. Like,
Yeah.
like who would have thought I needed a buddy cop book of Vader and Palpatine? Like, but I think I need it. Like, it was great. Because we didn't even mention the part where they go into a uh a Twi'lek village where they are unbeknownst of the Empire, and uh Palpatine gives him and Vader these old Sith names that mean death and fate, and ultimately
Yep.
teaches Vader a lesson. Because Vader even stops Palpatine from killing a Twi'lek, and Palpatine ultimately says, like, "Hey, at the end, like, there can be no witnesses to what happened today."
Yep.
And even though Vader saved one Twi'lek, he had to kill like a entire village. And they even reference, he's like, "Oh, that day I killed all of those younglings in the Jedi Academy.
That
I'm gonna
hurt.
kill all of these Twi'leks today too." Like, god damn. Like,
Um, yeah, there's some key points in here that really hit your soul. Um, so yeah. Any final thoughts other than what you just said?
um, I would probably I need to look back at what I gave this. I know that Goodreads does, I think, 5 stars.
Yeah.
Personally, I would give this book a 4. There, like I said, a lot of stuff that probably didn't need to be said in this book. It has good action, it has good pace. I think the characterization of the people that we do follow is very, very good. Um, I needed to know why Belcor was such a coward. I needed to see and feel that, and I did. Um, and then eventually getting the backstory on the moth and learning about her her wife dying and how that changed her, and how she kind of just like basically became like just dead inside, and didn't really care about her job. Like, I could see how that can force somebody's hand like Belcourt to just be like, yeah, I can run things now. Like, it totally makes sense with all of these building blocks leading to where it ultimately did. So I love the characterization in here, love the action. Um, and I would really like to see more of Palpatine and Vader in their relationship, because I that's something that I don't think has been explored too much, even in the Darth Vader comic. Um, and I wonder if Lords of the Sith is something that the comic took into consideration, because there is a moment in, I can't remember whose run it is, but they basically uh, make uh, Tarkin, I think, hunt Vader,
Yeah,
and
I
like,
know, I know which one you're talking about.
and I think it's like one or two issues, and that's a great story. Like, I really love that story. I think it's really, really fun, and I kind of thought about that when reading this book. Travis says, uh, really like this one characterization of the guards, and maybe slightly less focus on so many Twi'lek and more the Vader Emperor are the only nitpicks of mine. Yes, so same here for sure.
Alrighty, well, Clay, tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on any and all social media threads, Twitter, Instagram. Don't see myself streaming all that much lately, but if I do, you can always find me on twitch.tv/ fanboy clay10. That's fanboy clay 10. So go check me out there. Of course, I am on the network with Ranger Alliance. We just recently had an episode, me and Jake. Me and Jake are also going to be recording for our Patreon show with Marvel Snap. If you guys are fans of that, join our Patreon, only $5 for exclusive shows. And if you want to hear anything else from me, I am also on the podcast Batman News Weekly over on YouTube. So go check that out as well.
Yes, and y'all, you can find me on most social media platforms. It is at Slice of Katie. The show you can currently find on Twitter at Star Wars Alliance without the A and the war is very important. Don't forget it. We always forget to put this banner up, people. We gotta do this. Gotta be better at this, Claire. You can also email us at starwarsalliance@gmail.com. That same username that we are on Twitter. So that's Star Wars, no A in the wars, alliance@gmail.com. You can also text or leave us a voicemail, 830-538-4828. Please always remember to give us a way to identify you on the show so we can call you out and thank you, because we always love getting comments, feedback, questions. Love that. I know David sent us an email responding back. He was like, "Oh, it's been a month, but you know what? Like, I'm responding. That's all that matters." And I was like, "Yes, that is exactly right." Like, thanks for always being there, David. Travis said, "Awesome discussion. Keep up the great work, guys." Thanks, Travis. Really appreciate you being in the chat. Like, this was a fun discussion for sure. Um, and yeah, next week we are talking about the Legends book. I always have to look at the first one because otherwise I just call it Jedi Academy #1. It is Jedi Search, which is a Legends book by Kevin J. Anderson. So you can go check that out. It is on Kindle. And obviously your hard copy books. It is technically on Audible, but it is not. It is the abridged audio copy. So do not get it on Audible, guys. Just remember that. So, with that, I want to wish. Oh, what is next for me on Patreon? Clay and I will be doing a review of Percy Jackson, #1, The Lightning Thief, before the first two episodes for Percy Jackson drop on December 20th. So that is what you can expect next. I think it was Josh. Was it Josh? Yes, it was Josh. Josh, I'm sorry. I still haven't finished Murtagh. Okay. It's been a hot mess, and I'm actually really sad because I want to participate in some of this discussions on Reddit, and I keep having to remind myself, no, I will not click this post until I have finished Murtagh. But I'm listening to it, and it's taking me a hot minute. So sorry, Josh. But I will try to get that out in January. So yes. Um, with that, now that that is officially everything, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see you all next time. May the force be with you.